Thank you for all being here at 9:05. I had a drink last night. I'm sure I wasn't alone, so it's good to see so many bright and early faces at the conference early in the morning. So today we're going to be talking about motion design. So motion design, you might have been following in the engine under, I guess, the code name in the end of the day, Avalanche, Project Avalanche. But motion design is a tool set which we're going to be exploring today that's very new. 5.4 was its public debut as an experimental plugin. And that's what I'm running today. So I'm going to be running 5.4, but it's worth noting that in 5.5 there's been a lot of work that's gone into motion design in both features but bug fixes as well, front-end bug fixes. And so the version I'm going to be showing today could get a bit spicy, you know, and I've just chosen to do a live demo because I'm a sucker for punishment. But, you know, I'm actually kind of hoping that we run into some issues because realistically, if you dive into 5.4 right now, you're going to run into issues. And I want to show you my approach to deal with those things as well, right? None of the issues that I've seen in 5.4 really affect sort of runtime, is what I would say. They're far more kind of UX sort of stuff. And so, you know, that's the stuff that's been worked on heavily in 5.5. And things are looking really good. But my name is Jack. I am a senior software engineer at Epic. And I just realized my title's wrong. I was a solution architect. It's all the same. I am by no means a motion designer. Okay? People have called me many things. I've been called a technical artist. I've been called a programmer. I've been called a producer. No one has ever called me a motion designer. So why am I here today to tell, assumably, a bunch of motion designers or people who are interested in that inclination about how to use this tool? Well, in my career, I've worked with a lot of motion designers. That's because, you know, typically a programmer will be very involved with motion design in terms of working with a motion designer. It's very rare you get them, those two people to be the same. That's because animators spend their entire lives, as I see it, looking at curves, and they get very into that theory and all of those skills, right? And they're not always invested in, say, how to make a material that is going to do all those things, right? And the HLSL shaders and all the complexity. And so it's very rare you find that person who's going to be both. And so UMG, which is not motion design, they don't fill the same categories. I want to reiterate that. But using that as a framework to think about, you know, on many projects, UMG has been used as a previous tool if you have that person that can kind of wrap their head around it. But oftentimes, you'll have a motion designer that's going to work in, say, After Effects, Cinema 4D, blah, 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 build a previs as quickly as possible, and that becomes a template, right? Once that gets creatively approved, you'll move that into Engine, and a bunch of engineers will take it on and build that, right? That's a pretty common pipeline. And that's the pipeline I've been involved in, and something I really enjoy because I like trying to get animators and motion designers into Unreal, and I try to let them be able to prototype as much as possible, but it's always been hard. It's been hard for me, it's been hard for them, and sometimes it's just kind of a terrible production strategy when you're really trying to invest into someone in terms of tech, but you have a deliverable and you get too involved in the tech, so it's much easier. But anyway, why am I doing this talk? It's because I'm excited that this paradigm is changing. I think Unreal Engine is ultimately about providing agency to everyone, right? That's one of its strengths. That's why I love Blueprint. That's why I love the material editor, etc. And I think that we're seeing a new evolution of that through motion design. And I want to work with all the people I've worked with in my career, all these incredible motion designers that I've had the absolute privilege to work with, and pull them back in and say, hey, let's do this again, but here we have a tool that can do all of the things that you wanted to do. And that's so exciting. So that's why I'm here, but I don't want to be here next year talking about motion design. Absolutely not. I am the wrong person, right? It's not me, it's you. So this talk is about showing you the tool, hopefully generating some interest, and then next year I want to see talks submitted to NZGDC about, hey, look at this wild thing that I was able to build. And you show me what's actually possible. So I've got a little secret. This isn't actually PowerPoint. This is, in fact, motion design. We're already in there. We're inside the tool. And my original idea was that we would do this entire presentation in motion design, because that's something that you could do quite easily now, which is fun. But I realized that we've kind of already done that. So Andy Blondin in 2023 at Unreal Fest kind of gave that presentation. It wasn't a slideshow, but it was every single feature beautifully demonstrated by actual motion designers, and you got an idea of what the tool was capable of, right? And I decided, well, now you've got the tool in your hands, that's not what you really need. What would I want? I would want to see a grassroots sort of like empty level, how do I actually use this thing? Where are the buttons? What do I need to be worried about? Like, what's gonna break? How do I use it? How do I speed up my R&D? Okay? And so that's what I've decided to do today, and because of that, I've decided to do a live demo. But essentially, we're gonna be covering these things. What I wanna say about this is a bit of a disclaimer. The content I'm gonna be making today is I would say focused on showing off tools. So I'm gonna be building a few little bits of content. The idea is to use each one of these tools about once. So my content is ultimately maybe going to be a bit weird in places because I'm trying not to loop back. And also, I'm not a motion designer, but I will still fall into the category of tweaking curves. And that's really bad because we have so much content to go through, and we want to be proud of our work. Don't let me be proud of this, okay? If you see me just getting stuck and be like, well, it could be a bit like this, right? Which is, something the tools allow you to do. You have to yell at me and say, Jack, move on. This isn't about your ego. It's actually about us learning. So watch out for that. So we're going to be covering all these things. I'm not going to go through them. We'll go through them live. And the other thing I wanted to reiterate again, this is a live demo. I am expecting things to go wrong. Already I forgot my notes that in my hotel room, so we're already off to a good start. We'll see how much of this I can remember. But yeah, with that being said, let's get started. I wanted to just show you a preview of how I'm controlling this. This is outside of the scope of this presentation. But this panel here is actually how I'm controlling the slides, and that comes into our broadcast window. I'm able to output motion design to a bunch of different feeds like Blackmagic or RJAR, so I can go through SDI or Rivermax is even in there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it doesn't matter. Basically, it's very clever. It also can distribute to other computers to load balance an entire show. It was built for broadcast. So I'm focusing on art today, but anyway, there's also a bunch of really cool technology that we're just flat out not talking about. And I'm controlling the slides here. But anyway, let's get started. This is motion design. Well, this is an empty level with a few motion design panels at least. And I want to get started by making a new level. Give me one moment. So let's start in the void without anything, nice meditative space. And I'm like, this is Motion Designer, but you're like, this is Unreal 5. Okay, fair enough. Once you've enabled the plugin, and I should mention, Motion Design is actually a bunch of plugins. I'll come back to that. That's actually really awesome, rather than just being this monolithic kind of plugin. But if I come to here, I can say create scene, okay? Now you might have a Motion Design button. It's just the way my screen is culling on this resolution. But once I click that, boom, Motion Design mode, okay? And from here, the first thing I want to do is sort of set up my scene. So what would we normally do when we set a scene? Maybe we're really clever. We use environmental light mixer to set up our lights. maybe we just drag things in to the panel. Motion Design's got its own thing, which I think is really great. It's called Create Defaults. And what it does is it creates all the things, but with pre-calibrated settings. And these settings are actually in line with color representation and all these kind of things that we believe is the perfect setting for a motion design scene. So it's not your father's post-processing settings, you know? It's new, it's fresh, and it's set up for you. Now, you'll notice I'm not going to do the thing. I'll do the thing a little bit where I'm like, look at the UI elements. We'll do that really quickly, just so you're a little bit familiar. Over here, I've got my motion design outline, which sits next to my old outline. And it's got some great tools. So you can see things in the hierarchy is ordered. Its order is important when we come back to scripting. We've got a few cool buttons here, like lock. So I can lock the transforms really easily, which is important if you've got a camera in the scene. And I've got some visibility settings. I've got some other stuff too. We've got this panel here. That's a bit weird. What's going on there? Something called operator stacks. You'll notice some changes even in sequencer. And I've got this editor view mode over here. Okay. So I want to start in 2D to explain some of the animation concepts. I think they're going to sort of be clearer in 2D, then we'll move on to 3D because there's a bunch of stuff we can do in 3D as well. So if anyone's bored by 2D, I apologize, but we will get there. There's a bunch of stuff that exists in the 2D space though that's really cool. Like notice this grid is really useful. Can you see it on the, yeah, you can just see it. I also have grid alignment, right? So I can actually follow rules, which I'm not going to do. I've got a whole 2D shapes panel here, so I can come in here and I can click and create a rectangle, or I can select the tool and sort of do one of these, and it's giving me the pixel sizes, which is useful. Holding shift does that one. It does all the things you would expect, right? So let's go ahead and put that in the scene. And down here, you've got a panel of really useful things. I'm only going to go through a few of them, but we've got this align actor panel, and that's going to be basically essential to motion design. And I've got this one that stretches and fits the screen. So there we go. The idea of this was to create a background. Notice that I still have this concept of depth. And I could ignore that and sort of keep my layers distance. For this example, I actually want to use the parallax and take advantage of the fact that I'm not using an orthographic camera. I could be, but I'm not. And so that way, if I did a FOV shift, I could get some slight warping on the different elements. That's a creative choice, and that's something that I'm going to do. Okay, so normally when we work with objects and we want to put a color on them, it's easy, but it's not simple. And what I mean by that is motion design wants to be all about iteration. And so normally what would we do? We'd make a master material, we'd set up some nodes, very simple nodes, maybe a color parameter, right? We make a material instance and we'd be like red. Or maybe we do some other clever technical art stuff. None of this is simple, and all of it is clunky in comparison to the color wheel. And what I can do with the color wheel is just set my color, right? I'm not dealing with the material system at all. And it's got some great options, like I can put in 2 different colors in there, and I can kind of be like template 1, template 2. This screen has so much chromatic abrasion with these colors, it's just like I've gone into a cyberpunk fantasy. But I don't think that's coming up in your screen, so I'm sorry about that. It's wonderful. And I can also add a gradient really easily as well, which is really, really awesome. There's a few other features, hopefully we'll get time to explore them. I wanted to show that off. We've also got some really great 2D tools. Like one of my favorites is just not the polygon, the freehand tool, where I can literally just come in here and draw 2D shapes aligned to the camera, right? Here I can come in and I can use the eyedropper tool, which is really useful to maybe grab one of these lighter colors. Let's go ahead and use a gradient on this. We'll set the other gradient color to a much lighter color. And for this scene, my inspiration is the 90s, or my experience of it, which was Rocko's Modern Life and milkshake cups. If you know what I'm talking about, it's kind of often frequented by lots of triangles of different colors and sort of these chevrons that kind of wrapped everywhere, and it was, in my opinion, the height of design. And so to summon that, I'm going to kind of place a few of these triangles around, and I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me paint triangles. Instead, we're going to go to one that I made earlier. So let's go ahead and do that, because let's get along with our lives. And we have something like this, okay? Reasonably happy with that in terms of the aesthetic I'm going for. What we need next is we need a title. Now, where has my panel gone? Where's all my motion design stuff? Well, this is going to happen to you if you do change maps. Basically, that's happening because that panel in motion design is in editor mode, right? So if I jump into foliage, I'm not going to see it. If I jump into landscape, whatever. So if I come back to motion design, there it is. We do not need to panic. If I come to actors, I've got some neat stuff. Use a text actor and drop it right in the middle. And I will come here, and I'm going to move it forward a little bit, because what's going on there is that this background was a little bit forward, something that you probably don't want to do. I left it in there because I wanted to show you the mistake. Anyway. And if I come to layout, layout's a very common window that you're going to get on all these widgets. It's got a bunch of great kind of settings per widget, but in this case I'm just going to use the alignment to center it. Let's move over to text, and we'll write intro. I can't see what I'm typing, so intro that. We were close. Do you know what? Let's just leave it. Let's change the font. Oh God, that is no. That is. See, this is the beginning though. Don't let me stay here for too long. It really doesn't matter that there's a P where there shouldn't be a P. But I must. Yes. Okay. I can live with that. Just like that, I've got text. Great. You would expect that. Let's do something else. I've also got option to the color wheel on this. I'm going to keep it as white though. I want to draw another shape and show you another really cool tool. So I'm going to draw a little star. I'm going to hold shift to make sure it's got an even ratio. I'm going to curse myself for putting the background forward instead of back. Let's put this little cute star here. And now I want to show you this panel here. So this is unique to motion design. And it's really great because I can kind of parameterize a lot of things without going to the details panel, right? It's like my useful kind of area that I can grab things. And keep in mind, once again, the philosophy of motion design, it's all about that iteration, right? So I can change them or just roll over. For this, I'm going to get kind of like a little star like that. And I want to get a color. I want to get like a pastel gold. Something like that. Okay, so far I've been talking about motion design. We have done zero animation. I'm very aware of this. Let's go ahead and animate something. And to do that, there are so many ways to animate in motion design, as there should be. And so the first method I'm going to show you is using the animator objects. And so let's give this star a bit of a spin and a bit of a pulse. So if I come over here to rotation, that's what I want to animate here. I'm going to right click, and I've got all these new things. These thingies. These thingies are called animators. And I'm going to add a bounce animator to rotation, and I'm going to apply it to the roll axis. And now you'll see that it's like struggling to do something. Let's go to our operator stacks and into our animators. You'll see we've got this bounce, and I can start playing with this animator's settings. So let's change that to 90. And we've got something going on. I'm going to lower the frequency. Okay. And I am going to speed up the frequency. And there's a bunch of stuff I can do. But notice how actually, I'm going to come back to that point. We've already got this kind of working. I've got another way I can work and add animators. I can just go to add animator here, and I've got all my options. This time, let's do a pulse, and I'll do the pulse to the scale. And so now we've got the workings of a twinkling star. I know that that looks terrible, but I wanted to show you that basically you've got this array of linked properties, and what's going on there is I'm doing stuff to my X, Y, and Z, but currently I'm doing it on their absolute values. So now I'm literally moving between 0 and 1. That's not what I want. I want to work in additive. And so if I change these over, probably didn't need to do all axes, but I don't want to think about 3 dimensions right now. I have that going on, and now I can change my magnitude to make that effect a little bit less, maybe slow it down, and we have a little twinkling star, which is nice. And so it'll just animate, but I can control its life cycle, and I'll show you that a bit later. All right, I want to show you that you can also do some cool stuff in sequencer, and that the sequencer bars down here have been upgraded. So we're going to start with like a loading bar, okay? And so for that, I'm going to have circles kind of go boop, 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 which is the official sound of what that is. And I'm going to come into my color bar and show you that we have favorite colors. So this is like a history of colors we've used, which is going to be really useful. I can go ahead and grab that pastel gold. And from here, I want to animate this thing. So that's going to be pretty easy. I can go into my details, and I can still work the way that you would expect, right? So if I go into shape, I've got the shape size. Let's set it to, say, 100, just so it's a nice even number. And we'll say at 15 frames, we want this to be 100, okay? And at 0, we want this to be 0. Unreal doesn't seem to complain about the 0 value. And I'm going to hold that for a bit. And then we'll say, okay, and then leave us. You're going to come in, you're going to come out, you're good. And witness my animation, folks. Whoa, pretty good. But there's a really cool new feature to actually make this much better. And that's this curve selector here. I love this thing. So I can just select 2 points, and then I can come to my presets, and I can hover over any of these. This is so cool, because if you look at the animation, the curve is animating in time to what that curve actually does. And so if you're not an animator and you don't spend your life knowing what each curve is for, you can be like, oh, that's nice, and just kind of pick one. The other thing I really like about this is Andy Blondin, I mentioned before, he's the product manager on motion design. And just here, we've just got this little curve, Andy's fave, which I appreciate. I don't know, I think that's just in my version that was distributed, but anyway, I'm sharing that with you because I thought it was sweet. So let's go ahead and add a bit of a more interesting curve. I'm going to use a back curve to kind of get a little bit of bounce there. And over here, we'll use another back curve, but facing this way. Now it should bounce back out. And just like that, we have something serviceable. And yeah, I mean, I still have my curve editor, of course. You know, that's what it's done. I can make changes. I'm just not going to. So, I need a bunch of these, okay? And so you might be thinking, okay, well, duplicate exists, Control C exists, and then I can just place them in the world. Let's have a look what a schmuck like that, what that might look like. So I'm like, you know, this is not the motion design way. I wanted to show off modifiers. Modifiers are really, really cool. Let's go ahead and, oh yes, sequencer references. Let's nuke those. What I can do is I can use Control G over here to make a null, and we're going to name that null rings. And inside the rings, I'm going to go to my my operator stack and go to modifiers. And so modifiers are really, really cool. They do a bunch of stuff. What I'm going to show you is their kind of layout stuff, but they can also do a bunch of dynamic mesh operations, for example, booleans and all sorts of really advanced features all at runtime. And we've got options for masks. That's outside the scope of this introduction, okay? But it's very cool. Instead, we're going to use this grid arrange, nothing wrong with the grid arrange, and we're going to say, hey, we want to move horizontally, and what I'm going to do is now I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to move these because the order does matter, so I want my first ring to be at the top, and come back to our modifier and set the spread like that. And if I go ahead and make another ring and move it to the bottom, it automatically places. And the other cool thing is all these values are, can be animated as well, right? All your modifiers are exposed to animation through sequencer or external properties. So that's the motion design way. We have that going on, and our animation looks like this. But I wanted to move sort of in sequence, and so, you know, once again, I could come in and collapse everything to make it really easy to visualize this and sort of move these bars, you know. If I did that, I've got that going on. But I'm lazy, so instead I'm going to show you a different tool that came out with motion design, and I can come in here and use the stagger layer bars option, which will save you a lot of time. So here I'm going to say use the selected ones from the start, stagger them after 10 frames, and bazinga. We've got something like that. I'm going to delete a ring, because I want a point where they're all actually, yeah, there we go, there at the same time. I'm going to be organized, and I'm going to add this to a folder, and we'll call that rings. Great. Okay, so sequencer. It's been upgraded. It's kind of what you expect otherwise. Very, very, very cool. The next thing I want to do is show you a whole new tool. This lives its own plugin, so you could use it external to motion design, right? And that is the material designer. And there we go. You can activate it from clicking here. Once it's on your screen, you can grab any kind of element, and the outliner has this little button, and it will open that over here in your motion design, and then I can say I want material designer, and I say I want to use material designer for this. I liked our background, I like gradients, I'm going to make something worse, but we will learn the tool. So that's good. This should look really familiar if you're used to working with like any DCC that is like in this space. So over here I've got layers essentially, and you can see this is just a texture, so I can change that. I think I've got like a pattern. Yep, we'll use that. I can also add effects, right? So an effect could be like, whoops. We'll use this one instead. An effect might be something like a UV effect. It could be a color effect. We've got color levels, thresholds, vignettes, right? All these should look pretty familiar. For UV, I can add a UV panner, and I'm going to get that kind of motion there. Let's slow it down. Okay. I can also add other layers. So if I add a layer, we can add a solid color, and we'll go for our purples again. Something like that, doesn't matter. And I can also rearrange the order of these elements, okay? But I also have blend modes. Once again, all of these should look pretty familiar, right? Linear color, screen, color dodge, overlay, divide, subtract. I can use multiply, And then I can change my opacity. Kind of blend that in, get something a little bit interesting. I can add extra textures, and this time I'll use that other pattern, or is it T pattern 1, which I think is just the inverse of this. But for this one, let's use a different blend mode. We'll use a divide, because it's white and black. We should get something sort of cool. Yeah, happy with that. We'll change the scale, maybe big. And for this one, I want to separate the alpha channel and the texture channel. So I can do that really easy. I just unlink these, come in here, and we'll use a different texture. So I probably have some masks in this project, or at least I certainly hope I do. Lines. Lines are good. And with these lines, I'll rotate it so you can see it a bit clearer. That's offset. Well done, Jack. Let's go 80. Very hard to see. Do you know what? It's because it's not there. I'm using a texture that has multiple channels in this case, so I need to tell it what channel to look at. Specifying red should do the trick. And now if I rotate it, you can see those lines, right? That's kind of what I want. I want these to kind of, ultimately to animate like this, okay? But it wouldn't be rewarding for me to sit here and just move my mouse like that as a job. So I'm going to use a animator. And here's the coolest thing in my mind. So like, we have this, we're avoiding the material system, but this also plugs into animators, right? So now we can animate these materials from sequencer, any of these parameters, or from our animation system. Like everything is animatable. And this is just obscenely powerful. So in this case, I can just right click and add a time, and we'll do that to offset Y. And if we come back to our operator stack, and come to animators, I can, slow that down or do whatever I need to do to get that working. Very simple example, but very powerful in what it is. Okay, so I'm reasonably happy with that. The next thing I want to do is kind of create a quick transition in and out of this slide. So what I'm going to do to get that done is show you another feature, which is in Material Designer. I can control the overall opacity of this. So when I come into this, it's just added a gradient, you'll see, and now I've kind of got black, and then I've got the alpha coming back. For this one, I'm going to use another one of our masks, and I'm going to use this circle. My plan for this is to do like a Looney Tunes 007 sort of thing. So we'll have it pretty small, and we'll animate this in sequencer. And so once again, I think this is so cool that I can just create keys on material parameters. I'm not saying you couldn't do this before, right? But what did it take? You make your material, right? You make a blueprint. You create a dynamic material instance. You map all this stuff. Like, no, I don't have time for that. This is brilliant, in my opinion. I'm working so quickly. Which is funny because when I came into this, I thought I was just doing it for motion designers, and somehow I was too smart or something, or at least too arrogant, to really see this tool as this viable option. And as I started to dive into it, I was like, this is just great. This is great for everyone. This is just so fun. It really brings the fun into things. So let's go ahead, and I'll stop ranting and get on with the demo. We'll hold that for an amount of frames, and then we'll come up and we'll make sure that this is humongous, so I don't have to think about values. But now we should have something like that. You'll notice though, when it's here, we've still got this annoying circle. Just because of the way I've done that, I can't get rid of that. So it's actually an opportunity to show you that we have a global opacity here, which will override everything. That's pretty useful. So I'm going to come in here and key it to be 0. And I'm going to do that thing where like a few frames later, we'll just set it to 1. And so now, you know, that's going to be a lot smoother, right? Okay, so we've got the beginnings of an animation. I wouldn't mind matching the camera FOV with the circle to do something a little bit more interesting. How are we going for time? Nah, no way. Instead, what I'm going to do is show you another feature, then we're going to move on. So I'm going to add what's called a mark. And marks are really cool because they're essentially a data point that exists in your sequence. And so they can do things, right? They can do things. What can they do? They can do a lot. In fact, we have this whole transition system built into state tree. If you don't know what state tree is and this scares you, that's okay. But essentially, you can have all this transition logic that will do things, you know, play in reverse this bit, whatever, jump to this bit. This is necessary for broadcast, but you know, that's cool. We're not going to be that clever. What we're going to do instead is come into our sequence settings and come into our marks, and this is mark A. What I'm going to make the role of this do is pause. And so just like that, we pause. Now I want you to notice that our star is still animating, and so is our background. Okay, it's interesting. And now we can continue. Okay, so that's kind of how I was doing those introduction slides. So why is our star still animating? Well, it's because its animator is currently working in world space. And so let's make it worse by changing it to manual. And now I can feed in a custom time. Now this could be through programming, or it could be keyed through sequencer, right? And then I could control the curves in sequencer. The other thing that I can do is I can just put it in sequencer and specify the sequencer. And now its timeline is only moving with sequencer, okay? So I thought I'd point that out because it's useful. In this case, I just want world because I know that I'm pausing and I want to pause with some motion. But now you understand that. Cool. The final thing we're going to do, let's do a bit of an exit. We'll do something fun on the exit. So just here, we'll grab our background, and we will come to Material Designer, and we'll say, okay, well, let's bleed out that background opacity. And then I want to grab my camera and, oh no, I can't move its transforms. This is really good because I haven't knocked my camera, right? But to change that, all I need to do is click that there. And then I can go ahead and blend out of that. And so let's look at what we made together. We got an animation in. We say, welcome to Motion Designer. And we've got a nice little cute exit animation. Not bad at all, considering how fast that was. Okay, let's move on and move into some 3D stuff. So, I am going to move a little bit quickly. I have too much content, which is fine because I have some of these pre-done and we need to go back to, here's one I did later, draw the owl. We can. So I've got a little camera motion here. It's doing something. Let's get out of it. SVGs are now in the engine for motion design, which is really, really awesome. And they're, in my opinion, working really, really great. I don't have an NZGDC SVG because I didn't have access to my SVG editor that I use. So we're just going to use this one. This is a presentation I recently did in Korea, like 3 weeks ago or something. And so this SVG I made, once again, I'm not a designer, but you can see here, this is the SVG stuff. Which is terrifying. SVG as a format is horrifying, but it's efficient. And you'll see that it's generated a texture as well. And so if I'm using this in a UMG context, it's going to use that texture. That texture is generated out of the SVG. It is rasterized out of the SVG. But it doesn't need to be. And what do I mean by that? Well, if I go ahead and drop this in the scene, and let's lift it up. Let's come in here and come into our SVG settings. We'll up the scale so it's not tiny and not massive. And you're like, okay, you put a texture in the world. No, I put a mesh in the world. So it's actually generating those meshes from those SVGs, so it's going to scale based on that quality, right? Ooh. So that is really, really awesome, but we're not done. Let's do some more cool stuff. Let's come back to our camera, and I'm going to do some sort of like weird whatever that is. What I'm going to do is show you another cool feature, and that is that these are all separate layers, and because they're separate layers, I can kind of play with them. So actually, I'm going to jump out of our camera. We'll go right in. Or even move that up. So let's add some depth. I'm going to put a little bit more extrusion on all these objects and a little bit more offset. Now you can't see that because right now this is unlit, so it's a bit hard to see. But if I come into rendering, I'm going to say, please don't be unlit, and also cast shadows. Give that a moment, and we can start getting some pretty cool kind of effects going on. So I can kind of come out here and make that bigger. I can make the fill extrude a little bit bigger or smaller, the stroke extrude, so on and so forth. And so that's all pretty cool. What's actually going on here is that there's just a million little fills for each layer, which means I can pull it apart and animate it, but we don't have time for that. I can also change the colors of these individually. So I might be like, well, why is this background obviously bugged? Or Jack's just a terrible designer, like you said. Let's go ahead and match that color and sort of make some changes. Or grab this ring and change that color to something more pleasing, right? I can do this kind of thing. Or just delete elements like that background completely. It's pretty cool. But let's go ahead and do something else. What I want to do with this object is at the beginning, I really want to push it to its limits in terms of its separation. And with this shape offset, do something a little bit wild and have it sort of all separated. Yeah, that'll do. And then and I'm going to keyframe that. And then as we come in here, I want to push it back together. And so now we've got something like this. Terrible keys. It's like a bad transition type style animation. Pretty good. I hate this outer ring, I've decided. Okay, let's see that again. Yeah, cool. You get it. This could be enhanced a lot, I reckon, by grabbing our camera and adding a wiggle modifier. If you get sick easily, please don't watch the screen while I tweak this. But if I add like a wiggle to, we won't do the rotation, but if you do, keep the magnitude extremely small. This is my drunk camera. And just like that, I can add life into that camera, right? So instead, we've kind of got this more dynamic kind of motion to it. You can do a lot of stuff like that. Cool, let's move on. SVG exists, we're very excited for that. I want to show you more 3D stuff, which is in here, and cloners. So cloners are really cool. They're more or less like a Niagara front end, is a good way to think about them. And they really improve iteration speed, at least for what they're good at. So what I'm going to do is I've got these two little things. They're the objects I want to work with. But for now, I'm just going to move them over here. And I'm going to come back to motion design. And I'm going to come to actors. I'm going to put in a cloner. And it's going to create the Borg. There it is, the Borg. Their iconic spaceship. But we can do a lot with this, right? So what is going on here? Well, if I expand this, you'll see that we've got this little default cube in here, and it's being replicated, iterated through. And so if I go ahead and delete this cube, it's going to be sad because now it doesn't know what to do. But let's go ahead and put our things in there, and all of a sudden they're replicating them. And you're like, okay, it's 9 cubes, whatever. If I come in and go to layout, I can do actually quite a lot of things with this. So for example, I can increase the count. I can decrease the spacing. Let's bring them together. And let's do a little stress test. And so why is this going to be okay on a laptop? This is going to be okay because this is Niagara. This isn't cubes, right? This is a particle system. One that I have a lot of control over with high iteration speed. Okay, so let's bring that down because that's too much of a creative canvas for me to do anything that looks good. You know, probably 30, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to leave it at 20. 20 is the number, and that's not looking great yet. But we've got a bunch of constraints I can use. So for example, I could use a sphere constraint and then add some of these into here, and we've kind of got a sphere going on. You'll notice there's a pattern here, and I hate order. I only believe in chaos. And so what I can do is change the mesh rendering mode into random, and now I've got a far more sort of natural pattern. Coming back into layouts, I can do some other really cool stuff. I can change the constraints of the sphere, which is fun. I can also do an unsanctioned branding moment, don't tell Chantel, and use a texture. And so I believe I have a UE logo. Let's see. Ugh. Let's just try logo. I actually don't know what I have. Yeah, I got one. And all of a sudden, we've kind of got the Unreal logo going on. And I can change the, it's currently using luminance, but I can use the average or whatever I need to do, and I can change thresholds. This should be a pretty easy text to work with. Whole bunch of cool stuff you can do, right, just in that layout panel. Let's go back and just do something simple. I'm going to use a cylinder. Not a cylinder, a sphere. No, I want, I'm clicking the wrong thing. I want a cylinder. Okay, cool. It's a bit hard for me to see, sorry folks. I'm blind and then this doesn't help. And we'll nicely center that, probably, nah, whatever. And we'll animate it, right? Let's do some animation. That's kind of what's going to be interesting here. So what I want to do is add in some effectors. Now, so cloners have a friend called effectors, and what effectors do is they affect. And so if you have a look at this, as I drag this object, which is fully animated in sequencer, right, I can affect this thing. And they have quite a lot of different options and types and stuff. So if I expand the outer radius here, I can actually set the shape of this. So you can see that I've got a lot of control over how this is affecting my cloners. I also have forces. And so forces are a bit interesting in that I can start to apply GPU forces. Goodbye. They're gone forever. Or I can not do that, but you know, it's there. I also have mode. So right now, what's the effect I'm doing? And it's very obvious, right? I'm applying an offset of 100 to Z, and that's all I'm doing, which is fine. But I also have some really cool options, such as a noise field. And let's just add in some values to noise. Without thinking too much about them. But the important thing is I'm adding in a pan. And so what this is doing is it's going to go through a noise field. That field, that 3D field, is going to have a pan associated with it, which means that I'm going to get a very organic kind of curl noise kind of pattern that's going to move into that. And I can increase the frequency on that panning, start to get something like an oscillator going on. And this is still location bound, right? And it's still using those curves for its alpha. So very powerful. Let's ditch that, and I'm going to do something really simple. We're pretty much out of time, folks. So I'm going to come in here and do a plane and make this real simple. Basically what the plane does is it's not limited to its space in the world, and as it moves, it's kind of got two sides, and it's going to move between 0 and 1. That's how it works. In this case, what I want it to do is essentially, we won't use the Z-axis. I just want it to turn around, and I want it to, we'll do 180. This is why I have arrows. I want it to be really obvious. And I want to shift its position a little bit that way, okay? And so now we've kind of got this animation. I'm just going to move to linear for now so we don't get that bunching effect, which was kind of nice, but I'd have to tweak it, and we don't have time. And so now we've kind of got this upvote thing, and I wanted to show you that all of this is easily animatable now that we have that. So if I just grab the location, and then grab the location, say here, and move it to here. Okay. Come back to our camera. And we have this little animation. Very easy. Okay. How am I going for time? Is there 2 minutes? All right. The last thing I want to do is actually revision on stuff we've already done. So I don't care that we're going to miss it. I care a little bit, but I have it finished. And so the last thing I wanted to show off was that the animators can come from a lot of different sources, and one of those sources, of course, is music. And so in this sample, just to explain what I'm doing here. I have a sound effect, and I've got a few camera cuts. And so what I've done here is my effector, which is this one here. Let me jump out of the camera. Which camera am I in? Let me out. There we go. I've got this effector here, but this effector has animators applied. And the animators is using a sound wave to animate it. What I'm doing is I'm animating its attenuation, its Z. I'm just throwing together a few properties. But ultimately, the outcome ends up to be something like this. Yeah. see we're using the grid, we're using a noise field, we're using an animator, we're using sequence cameras. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that.